Hello and welcome to You and Your Reps. I'm Victor Azu. And fresh from a 5-week recess, the atmosphere at the Green Chamber National Assembly last Tuesday quickly turned somber as news filtered in that Representative Wassi Prestige had died after a protracted illness. National Assembly correspondent Lamia Lee reports that the member represented Aba North and South Federal Constituency of Abia State.
In both the Senate and House of Representatives, the first day of plenary in 2021 after 7 weeks of break was solemn as lawmakers come to terms with the demise of their colleague, Representative Wassi Prestige. Leader of the Senate, Yahaya Abdullahi, made the formal announcement to senators through a motion, after which prayers were offered.
We suspend the business of the day and all legislative activities outside of the chamber as well.
House Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila said the demise of the lawmaker is a sad and painful loss.
Honorable Wassi Prestige will be remembered by many of us. I know many members who have spoken to very heavy in their hearts. Our prayer is that God will comfort his family and that his soul will rest in peace.
A minute's silence was observed in his honor, and as is the tradition, sitting was adjourned to Wednesday, 10th February 2021.
Honorable Prestige was a jolly good fellow. We met in the 8th Assembly. Incidentally, where we sat on the floor of the House, somehow we christened that part of the chamber the House of Commons. He was a very dynamic gentleman, and so we gave him, we tagged him the Chairman House Committee, Chairman House of Commons, because that was a part of the assembly, in the 8th Assembly, that will not allow your bill or your motions to pass. He was down to earth, but I remember him for one thing. If you look at his motions, he was always very, very serious about patronizing made in Nigeria goods. He was an advocate of Aba made goods. Prestige Wassi most often put on Nigerian made dress shoes, Aba made dress shoes, and so he was a typical Nigerian. And I wish we have such people. Unfortunately, he has left us, but the Bible says that we should not be crying like people that don't have hope. We hope that somehow his soul will find rest in the bosom of the Lord, and then we will meet to part no more. We will miss him because he was a very dynamic, very friendly, he was a person that was always eager to make his colleagues happy, lend a helping hand, try to assist in whatever ways he can. And so when we got the news of his demise, we were all shattered.
He was friendly with all the members. He never knew any tribe. Honorable Prestige was Hausa, he was Igbo, he was Yoruba, he was everything. And he will be greatly missed in the National Assembly. If you heard the speaker today in the chamber, his voice was almost cracking. It will show you that he was also very close to him. And I know that the speaker did his very best. He tried to make sure that Honorable Prestige was taken care of even while he was abroad. And it's unfortunate You know, they say man proposes, God disposes. I pray that his soul will rest in perfect peace.
Honorable Prestige is not just a regular member of the National Assembly. He's someone that has contributed robustly to the success of both the 8th Assembly and the 9th Assembly. Just like Mr. Speaker said today on the floor when he spoke, Honorable Prestige Wassi was the chairman of the House of Commons. The House of Commons was made up of some parliamentarians that put themselves together and constituted a bloc in the 8th Assembly, a bloc that you could not take for granted, a bloc that whatever bill, motion that you wanted to pass on the floor, you needed to consult with that House of Commons. Honorable Prestige Wassi chaired the House of Commons. He was a very likable person. He was someone that was loved by almost each and every one of his colleagues. Honorable Prestige was jovial, was a fighter, he was dogged. Even when he was fighting illness, nobody saw it on his face. He was very cheerful. You know, the last I saw of Honorable Prestige, he visited me in my house. We had dinner with my family. My wife was even in shock when I told her yesterday that we had lost Prestige Wassi. He meant a lot to a lot of us. He meant a lot to me as a person. I'll miss him dearly. And I'll just pray that God should comfort the family, give the family the fortitude to bear this very painful loss. And above all, I pray that his soul should find rest in the bosom of the Lord.
May his soul rest in peace. Now, the House of Representatives has set up an ad hoc committee to conduct the screening of the service chiefs recently appointed by the President. Now, House Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila, during plenary last Wednesday, read a presidential communication notifying the House of the appointments and seeking confirmation. Chairman House Committee on Defense, Representative Babajimi Benson, will double as chairman of the screening committee. Members of the committee consist of 7 members each from the House Committees on Defense, Navy, Army, and the Air Force. Now, there had been much hue and cry on the need to reduce the cost of governance in Nigeria. Now, this is justified by the huge appropriation to the recurrent expenditure annually, which has made it difficult for government to meet its obligations. I guess all that is set to change as Speaker House of Representatives Femi Gbajabiamila has now added his voice to calls for reforms to address what he calls imposition of permanent liability on government. Again, National Assembly correspondent Lamia Ali reports.
It was the Speaker's first formal address to the 360-member House of Representatives in 2021. He drew attention of the lawmakers to current realities of reduced revenue, urging that Nigeria should be circumspect in her list of priorities. Gbajabiamila suggested that bills seeking establishment of more institutions should be juxtaposed with infrastructure deficit.
Let us work together to reform and strengthen the institutions already in existence and remove those no longer fit for purpose. I believe most sincerely that this is the pathway to a legacy that we can all be proud of.
Plenary featured first reading of 16 bills. The House, following a motion from Representative Henry Wauba on allegations of procurement deception and staff victimization at Project Development Institute, Proda, Enugu, resolved to carry out an investigation.
Mandate the House Committee on Public Procurement to investigate these serious allegations by inviting the Director General of BPP and Proda management to appear before the committee.
The lawmakers also resolved to launch an investigation in order to ascertain federal government assets, cash and residual shares in privatized organizations, as moved by Representative Mukhtar Ahmed.
Prior and post-privatization of some federal government public enterprises, federal government would still own shares in some of these enterprises and is therefore entitled to dividends.
The term adjournment is a common word, you'd agree, especially in the corporate world. But adjournment sine die is more commonly associated with the legislature. So, what does it mean to adjourn sine die? Let's take a look. We told you last time that the Petroleum Industry Bill is one of the priorities of the 9th House of Representatives. But what results does the bill seek to achieve, especially given the fact that it has been in circulation for about 15 years? You and your reps spoke with some House members to get their views.
The Petroleum Industrial Bill, the public hearing came up recently, and we're trying to fine-tune inputs that we got from the public hearing, even though there were a couple of host community issues that arose during the public hearing. So we're still looking at that as the committee of the PIB, both in the House and the Senate, to ensure that we tackle all those issues and come up with a bill that works for Nigerians, a bill that does not chase away investors, a bill that captures what local content stands for. There are a lot of lacunas in the PIB as regards local content and how host communities will benefit from this investment in the sector. So we as a committee, we're ensuring that we correct some of those lapses. There is no point having those huge investments in Nigeria if the local communities do not take part and do not benefit from it. There is no point having these investments if we cannot transfer some level of technology over time. And again, you don't want to chase away the investors. You don't want to over-twist them in such a way that the investment becomes unattractive. So we're trying to balance all of this in the PIB. And I hope that by the time we're done, we'll come up with a document that is workable for both Nigerians and the foreign investors. Basically, what the PIB seeks to achieve is to create some certainty in the oil and gas sector. Before now, an investor coming into the oil and gas sector doesn't know if what he stands to face if he's coming up with this huge investment. So you're putting, for instance, so and so sum of money, investing in the sector, and there's no document that guides you that says these are the levies you're supposed to pay. So you can do your calculations and know that if I invest, for instance, ABCD dollars, over 6 years I can break even and make a profit. So you're not guided by any document. So the PIB is the document that seeks to guide you, so that before you go into an investment, you look at the PIB, you do your maths based on the PIB, and you're sure that by the time you start your investment, there will be no law coming up to change what you've already calculated. That way it gives you certainty in the sector. So the PIB seeks to bring some clarity and certainty in the sector so that investors see what they are up against coming to invest in Nigeria. And again, the PIB seeks to protect host communities so that for every investment in that community, something is put back into the community. So the community is not left threadbare at the end of that investment. So it's a balancing thing between satisfying the investor and also satisfying the host community. So we as the National Assembly, we're walking that fine line. We're trying to see how we can tidy up on that document to the benefit of both the foreign investors and the Nigerian government, the Nigerian economy, and the host communities.
This bill has been long overdue, and we're just trying to catch up. The reason why I'm saying so is that all over the world now, oil is being found in almost everybody's backyard. Almost every country has oil, and in huge deposits. And so when we were supposed to have maximized the use and the profits in oil, we did not, because of the fact that we did not have we did not have good laws to govern oil, and so we've lost so much. And then if you look at the backdrop that people are now, countries globally are now moving towards green energy. That means there's reduction. Presently, there's reduction in the use of fossil fuel, and people are beginning to manufacture prototypes, even beyond prototypes, of electric cars, solar energy, even aeroplane. Commercial airliners are beginning to, adopt the use of solar energy. So with time, I think probably if it is too long, in the next 20 years, nobody will be talking about oil. And so we needed this bill to be able to maximize everything that we need to to benefit from oil. But the problem is, like I said, everybody is discovering oil, and so even the smaller countries are beginning to discover oil. And you know, now there are competitions on ground. So if the bill is not favorable, if the bill is couched in such a way that it's not favorable to the companies that are operational here, a lot of them are going to leave. Presently, a lot of companies have left Nigeria to Angola, to Ghana, to other countries. Now, so if we are making the bill, we have to be able to strike a balance. Whatever we want as a country, we also have to look at what the oil companies also want and be able to balance it. We're not going to say because we are doing a bill, you know, so that we can maximize every profit or whatever that we need to get in the next 20-25 years, and so we couch a bill that will send people away. But by and large, the way the PIB is being tailored is such that it's going to bring more benefit to the Nigerian population. But thank God, public hearing have been held and people have come in to give their own inputs, and I hope that we are going to look at it in such a way that both parties will, you know, be carried along. So if we are making the bill, we have to be able to strike a balance.
Another priority of the House of Representatives is the proposed constitutional amendment, which of course will encompass the electoral reform and other considerations. But what do Nigerians want from the constitutional review? We spoke with a cross-section of Nigerians. Let's take a listen.
Most of Nigeria's problem is at the grassroots. The state and local government need to be assigned more responsibility. And secondly, again, the issue of this policing, especially the issue of state police. State police is an issue that also the National Assembly is supposed to also look at it.
Most of Nigerians are not respecting the Constitution. They are doing things the way they like it. So if the Constitution is amended, whatsoever the Constitution is saying we should do it right, so that we'll get things right in this country. I think that's what I will advise on.
I would like the Constitution that will reflect the will of the people. In terms of governance, whether we have 4 tenors, 4 years for 2 tenors per, 4 years per tenor, or 6 years, 6 years tenor and once for all. The important thing is the good governance.
Unitary government cannot be sustained here. So we should go back to 1960 Constitution, where we have the regional governments. So there should be resource control by the owners of the resources.
Born on 1st June 1964, Ahmed Idris Wassi is a member of the All Progressives Congress who represents Wassi Federal Constituency of Plateau State. A civil engineer by training, he was elected Deputy Speaker of the 9th House of Representatives in 2019. Idris attended LSB Primary School, Bashar in Wassi, Plateau State, Government Secondary School, Mbar, Government Secondary School, Dengi, Plateau Polytechnic, Kaduna Polytechnic, and Harvard Kennedy School of Government, United States of America. And continuing with our tradition of exposing you to the various House committees and their functions, today we turn attention to public procurement. So let's meet the Chairman House Committee on Public Procurement.
Public procurement is very, very vast. As the chairman of the Committee on Public Procurement, I oversight over 800 MDAs. So it's a tough job. But what we are trying to ensure is that MDAs follow the Public Procurement Act in whatever they do. Now, every day in the news you hear about corruption, corruption, corruption. If you don't have a procurement system that is transparent, then of course there will be a lot of corruption there, because when you hear procurements, you know that money is being spent for one thing or the other. So what we try to do is to ensure that all these MDAs follow the due process in public procurement, and also at the same time, when there is full compliance, then of course you will see a change even in the economy, and even Nigerian local contractors will benefit from. We have gone through the procurement processes of over almost 300 MDAs now. And as you can see, I've told you we have over 800 MDAs. So even if we're doing one MDA a day, it will take us over 2 years to finish. But we thank God that we have committed members, and we are not out to witch hunt agencies. We are there to ensure that they comply. And of course, in some areas, what we found out is there is compliance, and in some other areas there's not enough compliance. And what we do is we try to guide them where we see these things, and then also where we see no compliance at all, we will make our referrals, because it has to start from somewhere. There must be a change. It is not business as usual, and we're determined to do our job transparently. And also, we intend to make the procurement process a bit more easier for our local contractors, because sincerely speaking, there are some areas of the Public Procurement Act that are a bit hard, but what we are trying to do is also make it a bit reasonable for contractors to work.
And that will be all for this edition of You and Your Reps. We hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and join us again.